Hi, it's Tracy Pattin. A few months ago, you asked us what you should listen to after Young Charlie was finished. And I'm sure you know once you find a show you love, it doesn't take long to binge through it. That's why we're back with a few more shows that I think you'll love. First, if you haven't already listened to the first season of Hollywood and Crime, stop what you're doing right now. Stop listening to this and go check it out. Young Charlie was the second season, and we're hard at work on season 3 of Hollywood and Crime. But season 1 started with a body, a woman, found in a vacant lot near Leimert Park on January 15th, 1947. Have you guessed who? The day Elizabeth Short, better known as the Black Dahlia, died was the day she was born into immortality forever. But did you know she was just one in a series of women whose bodies were found mutilated around Los Angeles around the same time? These cold cases have long haunted Los Angeles PD, and over the first season of Hollywood and Crime, we dug into those cases, eventually bringing in experts to determine whether this was the work of a serial killer or a series of copycats. Listen to the Black Dahlia serial killers from Hollywood and Crime and stay tuned for a sneak peek at the end of this episode. Next, I recommend Good Life Project. This is a big departure from what kinds of shows we've typically talked about here, but people listen to podcasts for all sorts of reasons. One is to be informed. We do that on our show, talking about the history of crime in Los Angeles. Another is to be entertained, but a lot of people listen to be inspired. Don't be surprised if you leave an episode of the Good Life Project feeling inspired and ready to change your life. Here's a preview from the Good Life Project's host, Jonathan Fields.
So what if you could pull up a chair next to some of the wisest, most accomplished teachers, creators, and leaders in the world, and ask them your deepest questions and then learn from their wisdom? Well, that's what we do on Good Life Project podcast, and we're inviting you to come with us. Every week, we bring you raw, unscripted, revealing conversations, stories, ideas, and insights from luminaries like Elizabeth Gilbert.
All I'm ever trying to do is help people be more free. And if they see me enslaved, then anything I say has no meaning. What authority do I have to stand there and say to them, don't let this happen to you?
Sir Ken Robinson.
Because we're obsessed with things like IQ, people think you can give a number to your intelligence. So the question is, how intelligent are you? My case is that intelligence is highly diverse. It takes all kinds of forms. So the question is not how intelligent are you, but how are you intelligent?
Dr. Tararai Trent.
If we give others opportunity, recognizing the human potential, without judging, we could do more for humankind.
To everyday leaders whose stories will move you deeply, reconnect you with what it means to be alive, reawaken a sense of purpose and possibility, and leave you inspired to handcraft your best life. Start listening to Good Life Project now on your favorite app.
This podcast is all about you discovering stories, resources, and a community that can help you change your life. You'll learn from the culture-shattering world shakers like Elizabeth Gilbert, Brene Brown, Seth Godin, and Gretchen Rubin, and the equally inspiring everyday guests, and learn that every story matters, and you can start living your greatest life today. Finally, I want to tell you about the show that will help you keep learning. Something You Should Know, hosted by Mike Carruthers, is a show dedicated to bring you the information that will help you save time and money, advance in your career, become wealthy, improve your relationships, and just get more out of life. He knows that one little fact or piece of wisdom can change your life forever. In this episode, you're about to hear a clip from host Mike Carruthers speaking to Cambridge professor Brian Little about personality and why you just click with some people and what that means.
Do we know roughly how much of our personality, is pre-wired, comes with the package, versus how much of it develops over time?
We've sort of reformulated that over the years, in that the nature-nurture controversy has actually been resolved because most of the people in our field, at least, see them as being co-constituted. And so the two are sort of in a kind of choreography, and in the course of development, both have an influence, but they're interdependent.
And so what are those things, whatever they are, what are the things that determine who we are and who we become?
really helpful to distinguish between the relatively fixed traits that could have what I call a biogenic influence, and what I call free traits, which take us into a domain of human growth and how we can shape our own lives. So the big 5 traits spell out a nice acronym: OCEAN, O-C-E-A-N, where O is openness to experience, C, conscientiousness, E, extroversion, A, agreeableness, and N, neuroticism. And those have biogenic influence. That is, that they appear relatively early in life. They're subject to development across a lifespan, and they're really consequential for the ways in which our lives are going to go. They can predict success in academic and our vocational pursuits, happiness and well-being and health and so on. But I believe that if we just stop there, we miss out some of the most intriguing aspects of what it is to be a human being. I coined the term free traits to describe how many of us will act out of character in the course of our development. And we act out of character because of the personal projects that matter to us in our life at various stages. So the example I use with my students is that I'm very introverted. I have all the characteristics that would be associated with it from a biological perspective. But my students see me as an over-the-top extrovert because I'm pursuing with them a project that matters dearly to me, which is to convey with passion what I believe to be true as a professor. And if I have to stand on my head in an extroverted way at 8 in the morning to keep them excited, I'll do that. And I'm certainly not rare. Many people listening to this might realize that they have been acting out of character for some time.
Well, when you say we act out of character,
yeah.
Would another way of saying that be, we're different people in different situations. I don't act the same with my children as I act at work, as I act when I go to a meeting, as I act when I go to the grocery store. I'm very different people.
Yes, indeed. You're absolutely right. But even that tendency to be different people is itself an aspect of human personality. So there's one personality characteristic known as self-monitoring. And those who are high in self-monitoring shape their behavior to conform to the situation they're in. As you say, at the soccer pitch, you act soccer dad. When talking with old friends, you're yet another person. And some might see you as a kind of stand-up chameleon, constantly shifting your personality to suit the situation. On the other hand, there are those who are low in self-monitoring who are just themselves. So you've got Doug, who is always Doug. He's never Douglas, and he's never Dougie. He's always the same in every situation. And those two individuals, high and low self-monitors, can really find it difficult to sustain a relationship, for example, because the low self-monitor says, I don't know who I married. You're a different person. Each time I see you in a different setting, I don't know who I actually fell in love with now.
You can find every episode of Something You Should Know on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this. Thank you for listening. I think you'll really like these shows. Hollywood and Crime, Good Life Project, and Something You Should Know are all available on your favorite podcast platform. And here's a clip of Hollywood and Crime. In this episode, we're talking about Georgette Bauerdorf, an heiress who was known for letting soldiers in need of a place to crash sleep on her couch. But did her generosity put her at risk? She was found murdered in her bathtub on October 1944. Take a listen. Day 1, Thursday, October 12th, 1944. Detectives from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department rushed to the El Palacio, a luxurious Spanish-style apartment building 1 block south of the Sunset Strip. The body of a young woman had been found in a bathtub.
Bauerdorf, B-A-U-E-R-D-O-R-F, Georgette, 2 T's, age 20 years old.
Inspector William Penpraise, the number 2 man in the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Detective Bureau, and Lieutenant Garner Brown, one of his top investigators, briefed about a dozen reporters outside the building.
The deceased was discovered by housekeepers at around 11 this morning. She was submerged face down in the bathtub. Hot water tap was on, just enough to keep the tub filled, but not overflowing. The water was bloody. The janitor, Mr. Fred Atwood, said he assumed she had fainted, so he turned the water off and drained the tub. Lieutenant Brown found residue of the bloody water on the body and in the tub. Lieutenant?
The source of the blood in the water appears to have been the deceased's nose, which may have been broken. There was also a piece of fabric in her mouth that we could not inspect or remove due to rigor mortis.
What sort of fabric?
Don't know. We found a Turkish towel on the bathroom floor that looked kind of dirty. In the back bedroom, which adjoins the bathroom, there were blood stains on the floor and the rug. The stains were smeared like someone tried to wipe them up.
In that back room, it appeared somebody had been lying on top of the sheets covered by the blanket. We found clothing on the floor, presumably belonging to the young lady. Her handbag was nearby, also on the floor. Some of the contents were strewn around it. Also on the bedroom floor, 2 ashtrays, both filled with cigarette butts. Downstairs in the kitchen, we found a can of string beans and some melon rinds in the trash. In the living area, nothing was disturbed or out of place.
Was there any sign of robbery?
No jewelry or other valuables were stolen. There was a large roll of $2 bills in plain sight and thousands of dollars in sterling silver lying in an open trunk. However, after speaking with Mrs. Gilbert, Mr. Bauerdorf's secretary...
First name?
Rose Gilbert. Seems there's about $100 gone from the purse. Also, the family's car is unaccounted for.
Green 1936 Oldsmobile Coupe. California plates 59B875. That's 59B as in Bravo 875. Registered to Mrs. John F. Dillon, who is the victim's sister, Constance.
Where is the family?
The father and stepmother, Mr. and Mrs. George F. as in Frederick Bauerdorf, and the sister have been in New York since August.
We collected dozens of sets of prints inside the apartment. There were no signs of drinking or socializing.
So there was nothing unusual?
One thing. When the housekeepers arrived this morning, the front door was ajar.
But she was taking a bath. So what have we got here?
Not sure. We spoke with the young lady's father by long distance. He said she suffered from cramps and heart pains. He suggested maybe her heart failed.
Isn't she too young?
At this point, we believe the most likely scenario is Miss Bauerdorf was knocked unconscious by a fall while preparing her bath, then drowned in the tub.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. That's it, everyone.
That was it. It was simply a tragic accident. Her father speculated that her heart had failed, that she'd fallen as she drew her bath and drowned in the bathwater. But here's something that strikes us as strange. This is the last time the public hears from George Bauerdorf in the aftermath of his daughter's death. And based on our research, it's the last time anyone heard from him on the subject, ever. His silence is puzzling. You'd think his paternal instinct would have driven him to board the next plane out of New York to be with his daughter and take possession of her body. But that's not what happened. There is nothing in the record pointing to estrangement between Georgette and her father. What we know about her is that she was a lovely young woman, seemingly unspoiled by her privileged upbringing. She was bright, big-hearted, and friendly. She had a round face, a sunny smile, and thick dark hair. She'd been staying alone in an elegant 2-story apartment at the Palacio for about 2 months. Before that, she shared the apartment with her sister Connie, who had since returned to New York with their father and stepmother.
Among the mourners today at Mr. Wilkie's funeral was First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, who represented the President at the services for his one-time Republican rival. KNWZ News Time, 4:30. Police say the missing car belonging to Georgette Bauerdorf, the young heiress found drowned in the bathtub of her Sunset Strip apartment, has been found. A resident of South Los Angeles reported seeing the 1936 Olds, which had been parked at the curb on East 25th Street. That's about 12 miles east of Miss Bauerdorf's apartment. Police found keys in the starter, but say the car was out of gas.
How did Georgette's car come to be abandoned in a hardscrabble neighborhood south of downtown? Had she run out of gas there and gotten a ride home somehow? It should have immediately raised suspicions, but it didn't. At this point, no one was asking questions about Georgette's death.